city's transportation planning section said that a dedicated left turn lane was warranted. They're the experts in the matter. They looked at it and probably were well aware of the topography of the road also. Howden, as you may or may not know, when it crosses Dixie, goes up a hill and then it curves to the right if you're heading westbound. This road that's going to give access to the subdivision is beyond the hill and around the curve, so that people that come along Howden westbound won't see what's going on. If there is no dedicated lane there, you're going to have a lot of screeching brakes and hopefully not too many crunches. It's a dangerous situation to not have a dedicated turn lane, which is probably, I would suspect, why the traffic people said that this should go into place. The report recommends a wait-and-see attitude to see how it develops in reality. The topography, I think, makes that pretty obvious what's going to happen. The other matter ancillary to this is I asked about overflow parking that would go from the 25 spots that are allocated there for visitor parking, which typically are used by residents an awful lot, based on my daughter's experiences anyhow. Would they go out onto Howden? I was told, no, there is no parking on Howden, to which I said, there are no signs saying that. Planning staff didn't know this. They're looking into it. I see oh my goodness, I'm talking much too long.
You're doing fine. You're doing just fine.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. My wife mentioned the idea of school bus pickup. That's going to happen out on Howden. It's going to have to jam up traffic there. The mornings and the evenings there is a torrent of traffic going along that road. In the morning, the torrent is heading down to get to Dixie and going south. Reverse happens in the evening. But if the school bus is there and the blinkers go on, traffic stops dead and there's more jam up. I'd like to turn to the floodplain, which is the westernmost part of the property. It's apparently a tributary of the Etobicoke Creek, I learned. And the report proposes that this floodplain be left in private hands, that the city be given an easement to do whatever work is necessary on this private property. The Conservation Authority, they use various terms in their letter, but the bottom line is they want this property to be in the public domain, or perhaps not the public domain, but public ownership. And I have not had a chance to consult with them. They seem to have authority to grant a permit or not grant a permit, witness Rob Ford's situation with his property, to property that comes within their purview. So it seems that the fact that they want this to be publicly owned may in fact put the city at odds with the Conservation Authority. There's a simple workaround here, because the only reason that the report suggests this should be left as private property is to have it as a passive recreational spot for the proposed subdivision. The simple solution that I would suggest is it be conveyed to the city as public property, and the city give an easement back to the condominium to use it as passive recreational property, do whatever plantings you want on there, subject to approval from the city. That way, if the city has to do work, it's their land, and also the city would not have to repair or restore whatever plantings that the condominium put in there. There's tax dollars involved here, and as a taxpayer here in Brampton. I don't want my public tax dollars to be used on private property. The saw-off that I've suggested here kind of cuts both ways. And it also means that this whole channel, which goes, I believe, if I remember correctly, at least from Williams Parkway, perhaps from Beauvais, all the way down to wherever it disappears down south, everything else on it is publicly owned. There would just be this one little patch in this subdivision that this report suggests should be privately owned. If that's going to be privately owned, why doesn't the city give all of this other land back to the abutting property owners? That would be fair. You've got to be consistent to be fair. Whether you can look at pages 32, 33, and 34 of the report, that has the letter from the Conservation Authority on it. And at page 36, there is what is entitled recommendation from the Conservation Authority, and it says, and I'll read this to you because it pretty much crystallizes what I've understood that letter to say. It says, significant work is still needed to satisfy our requirements, which is likely to influence the final development plan. Therefore, it is necessary that the comments outlined in this letter be incorporated into the updated recommendation report and the work completed to the satisfaction of the Conservation Authority before additional approvals such as site plan approval is granted. And as I said, they want it to be owned by the city, not by the condominium. My goodness. All right, I'll roar along. I'll let you read that. If there's any questions, I'll certainly be willing to try and answer them. The question of privacy for the poor folks on Hazelwood. These are the poor folks who are going to be right behind these four-story buildings. I'm resisting calling them townhouses because they're not the typical townhouse where you have a family in a row home, for lack of a better way to describe it. These are more like walk-up flats. These are going to be 4 stories. I was just looking out your wonderful windows while I was waiting for council meeting to start. 4th story up here, they're going to be 30 feet from the back property line of these people on Hazelwood. Looking out here, I could see everything. The fence that's going to be there is about as tall as, a little bit taller than I am. There's also some vegetation that's promised to be planted. I remember the vegetation in the form of a tree that went into my front yard when my subdivision was built, and it's now edging up after 30 years, roughly speaking, to the height of my house. So vegetation is not the solution here. The report from your planning department says that the permissions are not out of proportion given the setback, etc. There is, remember, in the Planning Act, the requirement that there be conformity between the existing plans of subdivision and the new ones. The existing plans of subdivision on Hazelwood, for example, do not have any 4-story buildings on them. They are 2-story, story and a half, side splits, etc. They're not 4 stories. So that, to my reading at least, clearly does not conform to the existing subdivision plan. And therefore, it shouldn't. It's bad planning. Ms. Ash says it's good planning. I'm going to take issue with that. She's here to be taken. She is. Ms. Ash has been dealing with this since its inception many years ago, and we meet periodically as a result. What I'm going to suggest, if this wall of buildings faces Howden, it's not going to look pretty, but at least it's not going to impinge upon these poor folks on Hazelwood who are going to have these 4-story buildings in their backyard. 2 stories at the back makes some sort of sense. and it comes close to conforming to what's in the area. Um, I would urge you seriously to look at the impact on these people on Hazelwood, and as well as their direct impact on their privacy, because they're going to have these buildings, as I've said, in their backyard. It's going to have a negative impact on their property values. That was dismissed in staff's report with one line, well, two lines actually. It said, "There is no evidence to suggest that the proposal will negatively impact the neighborhood in terms of decreased property values." Sounds almost like you're in a court arguing about it, doesn't it? I didn't think that's not what I expected, let's put it that way. The depreciation of the house is what's at issue here. Thank you. I had, as probably many of you have had, real estate agents come to the door looking to list the house. Well, they had a misfortune to come to my door this time because I asked two of them, what's the impact likely to be from having these four-story buildings in people's backyards? One of them, and I have no way to vouch for the merit of their opinions, I'll just pass them along to you. One of them said, well, it would make perhaps 10 to 15% depreciation on it. The other was not going there at all, wasn't going to say one thing or another to me. But both of them were unanimous, and it's only logical, that having these four-story buildings in their backyard would make these houses much more difficult to sell if these people want to move when they get out of there. One other point, and then, oh my goodness, I've gone way over. I do apologize, Madam Mayor.
Just make sure you get all the points you came here to make. You sat patiently till this item came forward, and we're here to listen to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only other thing, because you're going to hear some of these other comments, I'm sure, from other neighbors, the benefit, from my perspective, as I said, of putting the two-story buildings in there on the Hazelwood people is very simple. It brings, first of all, the proposed subdivision into conformity with the old one. If they have a two-story there, it provides gradation, which is what's always been the norm in Brampton. You don't have a 40-story apartment building next to a two-story house. And it would then help, it would ensure conformity, it would help the people on Hazelwood, and it might not cause as much impact on the value of their homes. And I think, although I went way overboard, I could have gone on for about another hour for what I'd written, and I do apologize for not noticing the notice that it was supposed to be 5 minutes. If there's any clarifications, if I went too fast, I'll certainly be willing to take any questions and try to answer.
Thank you, John. There's no one on the board. Normally, because there's several delegations, we hear from all the delegations, then council can frame their questions if they have any. Sometimes one delegation answers a question you're thinking by their comments, so we usually get through the delegations before we have the questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And we invite you back if it was directed to you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Helen Branoff, Heath Drive. Helen?
Hi, good afternoon.
Welcome. And after Helen is Barry. Who's Barry? Barry, you'll be next, so just so you know. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. I would like to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak about the wonderful community of Bramley Woods that I not only reside, but also grew up in. When I moved back into the area, I was excited for my family as I knew it was a terrific place to raise children. While Brampton has changed greatly over the last 20 years, larger, busier, and unfortunately more crime-ridden, I thought this area was a safe and community-oriented area. I would like to speak about the impact that these new homes would have on the area as both a parent and an educator. I would like to discuss the traffic, environment, and socioeconomic factors that this massive development would have on our lovely neighborhood. While many of the residents can speak to the many negative side effects that these new townhomes would have, I have the unique perspective of looking at it from a teacher's point of view. I not only live in the area, but I also teach at one of the local schools. Every morning I have grave concerns over the traffic issues that students at all levels face. Logistically, it is difficult for many parents to get out of the area and bring their children to school. Every day I see how children from both the elementary and secondary levels must take extreme caution when walking to and from school. Many of the cars traveling along Howden Boulevard do so at accelerated speeds, and each year the volume of cars increases. The new housing proposal would only further increase this problem, especially as Howden is the only entrance into the proposed area. I am concerned and angered that the City of Brampton would want more traffic on an already busy street. Many of my students have had to change bus routes because it was simply too dangerous for them to cross Howden. Furthermore, the traffic flow on my street, Heath, and on Hillside Drive would greatly increase as people will use those roads to get into their new area. Both of these streets are used by many citizens of all the surrounding areas to walk, run, or bike ride with their families. What measures could be put into place during this very busy rush hour time? I think it would be an unsolvable issue. Second, the schools in the area are at comfortable numbers in relation to class and school size. Many of them are planning new programs that would already see an increase in student population. If even half of the new homes have the new students attending these schools, you will be putting a strain on the schools. Is a developer going to talk about how his homes cause a need for portables? A selling feature, no doubt. Each portable costs roughly $200,000 to install, and most parents do not want their children in portables if at all possible. The introduction of these homes would cause strain not only for the residents of the L and H sections, but also the N and M sections as well. Third, the Peel District School Board has done various studies and has an index of every school in the board and possible socioeconomic risk factors. The area of possible development would send its children to the local public elementary school that is located in a high-risk area. Once again, these new homes would be putting a strain on the existing school. Furthermore, there have been numerous studies that have shown a direct correlation between green space and its effects on residents. Many lower-income areas have seen a decrease in crime with the addition of parks, trees, and flowers. As per the above information, the city should be trying to preserve any green space and not fill it up with homes that would get rid of it. If we are truly Canada's flower city, then we should be beautifying, not destroying. I am totally baffled as to why the city feels it needs more lower-income housing. Quite frankly, many of the homes on the east side of Dixie are an embarrassment to Brampton. While traveling along Dixie, the juxtaposition of the beautiful flowers against homes that are poorly maintained is quite evident. Those homes are only 1/2 to 1/3 of the prices on the homes of the west side of Dixie. The new townhomes would eventually turn into the exact same thing. Many of the students that I teach who come from that area refer to it as being ghetto-like and aim for the day when they can move. Please do not recreate this same environment. There are many high-density, low-income housing directly south of this area where there are many vacant and for sale signs, thus showing that there is a surplus of homes in that price range. Since I have moved back into the area, my own van has been broken into 3 times, Christmas decorations has been stolen off my lawn, and a visitor's car has been stolen off of my driveway. I fear that crime will continue to escalate, especially when more homes are coming into this area. As recently as last week, the Brampton Guardian stated statistics that crime rates have come down in Brampton, except personal property crimes, which have had a slight increase. This is an issue that is already difficult for police to deal with, and believe me, if you are in that slight increase category, it is not a nice feeling. On a personal note, I know that the area residents enjoy the large trees, small wildlife, and birds that the area has to offer. It is part of a small but unique ecosystem that makes Bramley Woods special. While I am not so naive as to think that economics is not a factor in this decision, perhaps the developer in the city should reconsider the number and type of dwelling to be built. Why not build 10 executive homes as opposed to the 80-plus townhomes? The above idea would at least lessen the grave burden that any new homes would have on schools and the social and physical environments. I know that Councillors Miles and Hames are great supporters of our schools, as I have seen them at numerous events throughout the years. One of the Peels Board's longest-standing trustees, Ms. Beryl Ford, is also a big supporter of our local schools, as she was once the secretary at the school that I teach at and actually went to. Finally, as Mayor of the City of Brampton, I believe that it is the Honourable Susan Fennell's duty to protect protect the children of our communities. We hopefully have many allies on our side, as this is a decision that affects many areas of Brampton. A vote by the councillors for this project would mean that they're on the side of the developer and not on the side of the residents, as no one in Bramley Woods wants this development to happen. I also believe that if more of the other residents of the surrounding areas knew more information about this proposal, that they too would be against such an unjust and ludicrous development idea. We teach our children that one voice can make a difference in social change. If the residents of over 250 homes are opposed to having a new development in their area, then I believe it is council's duty to make sure their voices are heard. Otherwise, why have elections and teach students that if they want to change or they want to make a difference in their community, that they should become active citizens? I hope that you will reflect on what I've discussed and that I am the voice that stood up for the children of the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Barry, and then Michael. Who's Michael DeFaze? Is Michael here? Oh, there. Okay, you're next, just so you know. And then Devinder is, okay, and then you're following Michael. Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, panel, council. I thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I object to the recommended approval of the application by Corsiac and Company to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to develop the lands for 81 stacked townhouse units as per the following. The report does not nearly address all the concerns raised by the interested members present at the June 17th, 2011 meeting, as noted in paragraph 2 of the overview, but merely mentioned a token 2 items on fence size and some minor landscaping. The proposal does not fall within the permitted height and density requirements as written in paragraph 3 of the overview. This proposal is a request or application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw. Further, the proposal of medium density stacked townhouses is not designed in a manner that is compatible to the scale, design, and character of the existing low-density community of high-quality, single-detached, single-family, 1- and 2-story houses, architecturally custom designed. The zoning bylaw for these lands should not be changed to accept stacked townhouses. This property is similar to the recently City of Brampton approved and built 15 2-story townhouse complex on the south side of Bodden, just west of Laurel Crest. 2-story units would be a more acceptable plan on this site. Another project was denied on Dixie Road South about 5 years ago for a similar reason of height, looking down into the residential properties on the south side of Hazelwood. This set a precedence on height control. I also ask whether this plan has been reviewed by the Brampton Fire Department. I therefore submit that the 81 stacked townhouse proposal by Corsiac and Company does not conform, and the application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw not be accepted. Thank you.
Council, and I must tell you, I am not the person that you're supposed to be listening to. He is my neighbour. He had to leave, and he asked me if I wouldn't mind speaking. If you don't mind.
Let me just get the proper protocol here so you don't go down in the history books as being Michelle.
I'm not Michelle.
Okay. And
Guaranteed.
I said Michael, but the name is Michelle. So could you please give the clerk your name, please?
It's Brendan Nesbitt.
Brandon, as in B-R-A-N-D-O-N?
No. B-R-E-N-D-A-N.
B-R-E-N-D.
And 2 T's.
And 2 T's?
Yep.
Okay, and do you need the address too? Just the street name, we'll get the address
Lord
later.
Simcoe.
Did you get that?
I have lived in
Welcome.
Brampton for approximately 42 years. I've lived on Lord Simcoe for, I think it's 28 years now. We've been around this over and over and over again about this same piece of property. It raises its ugly head constantly. When you think you've gone through the process and nothing's going to happen, then all of a sudden it comes again. I personally was not notified through mail. I know someone's going to say it's in the Guardian. I don't read the Guardian, right? Why a council would not at least send notification out through mail, why not? What's the big deal, you know? Furthermore, I object to the meeting being held at this time of day, at this time. I think there's so many more people would attend this if it was 7 o'clock in the evening or something. And I totally object to this. I looked directly across this piece of property. When we bought the house, that was part of the reason for it. Now, I know things will change as time goes by, but nevertheless, the idea to see these dwellings now going up, if you take into consideration from the beginning of the building of this, the noise, the trucks, the traffic, that may go on for 2 years. I don't know how long it would take them to build it. That's what we're subject to. Anyway, I'll say no more, but I would like to recommend that you offer this meeting to the rest of the residents in the area for a 7 o'clock or something in the evening. Thank you very much.
Okay,
And I'll be waiting to hear from you.
sorry. Thank you, Councillor Miles.
You just asked the commissioner to explain the planning process and that the meeting was held at 7 o'clock for the public part of the process, for the public meeting.
Can we have one more delegation, then can we do that? Okay. We're just going to review the public meetings that were held, and they were held in the evening for that very purpose. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and the rest of the council, or good afternoon, actually. My name is Devinder Mangat. I live directly behind or south side of that new proposal. We have put together a letter which is about 6 or 7 pages long, which I have given a copy to the city. If you want me to read it, I can read it. I really appreciate John and Helen putting up the report together. It was really good, and they really standing behind us from Hazelwood, and I can, rather than reading this 7 pages long,
Oh, we can put
Proposed.
that right into the record if you'd like.
because you have for the record, but I can just speak about a few personal things on that. And actually, it's been signed by about 10 different
Thank you.
residents in the area. I'm one of them. My concern is this new development, either it's part of the Bramley Woods or not part of the Bramley Woods. If it's part of the Bramley Woods, like everybody else said, it should be built according to or close to our neighborhood as Bramley Woods, which on south side of this houses, there are 7 houses. 2 of them are 2-story, 2 of them are single-story, and 3 of them are 1.5-story. So that's just one single reason. I will bring some more. On the other hand, like I said, they're not part of the Bramley Woods. That's fine with me. I have no problem with it. Anywhere else, wherever there are executive homes in the city, I have brought this in attention last time too, there's at least a buffer zone of 200 feet. Even then, after 200 feet of buffer zone, the houses are only 2-story high. So what kind of a discrimination us having with Hazelwood, which there are not many properties like this in Brampton or in Bramley, like you can only go few of them. The other property I'm talking about is pretty close to us, and that's how the proposal were done, and I don't think there was any opposition to that. So that's two reasons, like either they're Bramley Woods or not Bramley Woods. If they're not Bramley Woods, it's fine with me, just to put 200 feet behind me, put 2-story high, that's fine with me, and then I won't be here speaking to any one of them. And there are other concerns John and Helen really put together, I totally stand behind, like I said before. And in Bramley Woods, there are about approximately 80 acres and about 150 homes. And this is about less than 4 acres, we're gonna have 80 homes. That's the thing I'm talking about. I really can't see why anybody can't see that. Planners or OMB. People are saying they're threatening us, oh, OMB will approve it. Let me see OMB if they've approved. At least they may approve the whole thing. At least they will know what I'm talking about. And there's no any other way OMB will know that. They may have made the regulation being made before for the development of Ontario. They must have been amended, changed, or some more clauses added to that you can particularly look at a particular place, there should be something different. So even if I will need cities' help, if it is according to the rules of regulation of Ontario, but at least this falls in a little different category. I'm sure, I don't think there's more than 5 or 6 different places in Brampton like this. So it has to be a little different. It has to be taken a special permission from Ontario government or something if you have to, that whatever regulation they made, and planning people should have gone there and asked for, hey, this is what's going on. And that's why I will need cities' help to go there if you pass it or don't pass it, or they go where they don't pass it. The other thing is, we have a park on that creek there. If you like I said, there's 150 houses, and now you put 80 more houses. There are going to be more walkway traffic on that thing. That's fine. It's public property. They're allowed to, but at least what I like to add on to that, there should be no access to that creek from the Hardin. It's just so that there's not about 100 more people. I see about 2 or 3 people these days, once a day, or maybe more on the weekend, but I'm sure if there are more 81 houses there, there'll be lots more. The other thing is the traffic thing. If you just look back, the Bramley Woods was built for 150 houses, and there's no sidewalk. There's no sidewalk. And I'm sure there's going to be increase in the traffic, like John and Helen said, because they want to get to. I do it, I go different ways. This way is better, the other way is better. And traffic is going to increase. You know where we do go walk in the evening for something? On the street. And that safety of whole Bramley Woods, which is exactive homes, not low density, exactive homes, safety going to be in jeopardy because there are going to be increased traffic. I have spoken about this a few more times, in the last few times, and I'd be willing to answer any questions. I don't know what you have on the record, what I have spoken before, but I strongly ask the city to help us. Just think about it, There's a picture there. I don't want buffer, I want single-story homes. Not single-story, I'm sorry, single-family homes, just like they're built on the Lord Simcoe. On the west side, they're bigger lots. I'm not even asking for those. But at least give us the Lord Simcoe on that property, those kind of lots and those kind of houses. I'm sure there won't be a single person here sitting, and we won't be talking to anybody. And this would have been done 5 years ago. Like originally, I think there was only 40 houses. Then it went 60 houses, then it went to about 101 houses. Now it's down to 81. It really is not down to 81. It's just that block on the west side being taken off because of the flood zoning, as John have talked about. I guess I'm done, and I'll really need your help to listen to the Bramley Woods. But I think, I'm sure everybody knows, when you talk Bramley Woods, it's the flower. It's a flower of the flower town. Even though we don't have Flower Town Street, it's on the other side. But just, everybody knows it. I don't have to say that. The area was built about 42 years ago, and it became the crown living of inside the Bramley or Brampton, and please keep it that way. Thank you very much, listening.
I'm not sure, Councillor Miles, you wanted a clarification point?
I think we can leave it at this point. I believe the commissioner was going to do a brief overview.
Well, what would you like? I have motions before me.
Do we have more speakers?
No, I have a motion, maybe I could take that one, just to move
Madam
through the
Mayor?
file. It's a motion to receive the delegations and the written correspondence. Can we take that one? All those in favor of receipt of the delegations, and there were several emails that have been forwarded and are documented here from Patricia Wellen, Jim and Sheila Williamson, Eric and Marilyn Kelday, Denise Bukchinzuk, and Brian Chettle, and Mary Folk. They're all here. All those in favor of receipt of the written and so on delegations. Okay, Councillor Miles?
Well, the commissioner, we had asked the commissioner to just give a brief overview because of the amount of time that has passed
Okay.
on this.
Mayor, I'm happy to do that. First of all, I'll speak to the timing of this application and the public meetings, and I'll get into some changes that have occurred over the ensuing period. First of all, this application in itself was filed with the city under the Planning Act on July 14th, 2009. All requisite signage and notification was done at that point in time, and then the application was processed in accordance with the Planning Act and Council's procedures. The first statutory public meeting on this proposal was held on June 13th, 2011, and those meetings are held in the evening. And several residents came to the meeting and raised concerns and provided comments to us that we took into account and evaluated carefully. The next step in the process was several meetings with the developer to address those issues, and through those meetings, the scale of the proposal was dropped from 101 units as currently submitted to the current 81 units. In addition, during that time frame, there was the ongoing discussions with the Conservation Authority, and that resulted in a much larger area to the west on the property being reserved to protect the floodplain, as has been mentioned this afternoon, which adds to the amenity of the area. The recommendation report for this development was filed with Planning Committee on June 11th, 2012, approximately a year after the statutory public meeting, and a number of residents appeared at that meeting as well to lodge their comments. In accordance with Council's procedures, notification for that meeting was provided vis-a-vis notification to those that came to the statutory public meeting and made representations, or to those who provided comments in writing and provided their addresses. At that meeting in June 2012, the recommendation report, after hearing the residents, was deferred to this meeting of City Council, and notification of that meeting was provided personally by planning staff to those people who attended the meeting, provided their address, or in fact wrote into the city requesting such notice. And during that time, between June and today's date, other meetings have occurred with private meetings with residents who back on and wanted to have engagements with staff and the developer to seek improvements to their property. Going back then to the origins of this site, over a large number of years, 10 years or more, we've, as the delegates have said, 20 years. Well, I was going to focus on the last 10 years for now. And there have been a large number of proposals on this site of varying intensities and quality, which have met with residents' disapproval. Over time, planning legislation has changed in Ontario in favor of intensification. So where those previous proposals still had medium density forms proposed, what happened, as you saw earlier in this meeting, the province introduced the Growth Plan Act, which required us to amend our official plan to identify intensification areas. Sites like this in built-up areas that could reasonably handle some intensification, and that's not a matter of discretion, that's a mandatory issue in order to meet our density targets, as long as we can meet the technical criteria to accommodate it. And one of the things that we were required to do to meet the intensification tasks are to ensure compatibility. So some of those compatibility issues that have been dealt with has been the location of the access, the urban design of the units themselves, the quality of the units in terms of their architectural quality has vastly improved since the application was submitted in 2009 as a result of direct negotiations with the landowner developer, the residents, council members, and staff. We've also increased with the TRCA the undevelopable area on the floodplain. We've increased the setbacks, and more recently, since the last meeting, there's been dialogue with the residents to install landscaping on those properties abutting the property to the south, to put private landscaping in to shield the view of the 3- and 4-story dwellings. So we have been responsive to all the issues brought up by staff. We feel at this point over the years, 10 to 20 years, this by and far is a far superior development than what has been proposed previous, and would withstand a challenge before the Ontario Municipal Board. And for all the reasons set out in our staff report, we feel it is an appropriate scale and intensity and use of the land.
Councillor Miles?
Yeah, thank you to the Commissioner. And I don't know if the residents that are here in attendance understood everything that the Commissioner has said, but I know I have been the councillor in this area for over 20 years, and this particular property has been subject to a number of different proposals time and time again over the years. And in fact, it's changed ownership 4 times. And largely because when the owner of the property came to develop the land based on land value, what they paid, what they needed to do, and the amount of objection from the community around it, they never felt that it was viable to build single-family dwellings on this site because of the configuration and a number of different things. So as a result of that, the land has just continued to keep changing because the municipality has continued to object, and the councillors of the area, along with the residents. As the Commissioner has pointed out, times have changed with the province of Ontario passing its growth plan. So it's requiring us as a municipality to intensify, and that's whether we like it or not. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about Vauden and Howden, because Vauden and Howden was an area that the residents opposed, the city opposed, and of course the councillors for the area. We were all in opposition to that, and we did turn down the application. It went to an Ontario Municipal Board hearing, and on that particular site, the city had some pretty sound reasons for not supporting the application, and the Ontario Municipal Board, in fact, did not support the city's direction and in fact approved the townhouses with or without our approval. So once the intermunicipal board makes that decision, the municipality, we don't have any choice. We have to allow that to go ahead. So here we're back to this particular site, fourth landowner on this site who comes forward with an application in 2009 for townhouses. And so what has happened since that time is the municipality has worked with the applicant. At one point, we had a group of residents meeting, and there was a general consensus that executive townhouses might be acceptable on that site. And there was only a small amount of people that we were actually meeting with, John being one at that time. So over the period from 2009 until now, the municipality, the planning staff have worked with the developer and all of the other commenting agencies to come back with a plan that would be supportable based on planning principles. So if you look at the site now, the site, almost half of the site is actually green space today, which is not what the original plan was. Councillor Hames and I were not involved in those discussions, and when the planning report came forward to council based on our planning staff's expert advice, the recommendation was to support the application. And once that happens, once staff support the recommendation, your case at an Ontario Municipal Board hearing is it's very weak. So when the report was coming back in May, we asked the planning committee to not make a recommendation, but to actually give us some time to work with the residents and the developer to see if we could find some concessions in the plan, because we had a positive staff recommendation that Councillor Hames and I felt pretty certain if it went to an intermunicipal board, the OMB would rule in support of this development without any qualms. So we did hold a meeting, and to be honest with you, our primary concern was to try and buffer the impact on the houses on Hazelwood that were going to be directly adjacent to this new development. And just one of the delegations had asked, is this part of Bramley Woods? No, it's not a part of Bramley Woods. This is a separate neighborhood. It will be a condominium corporation, which means that it will govern itself. That just came to mind. So what we have done is we have had several meetings with the residents on Hazelwood, most particularly if you look at really 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. 11 basically doesn't back on to any of the houses, so we were trying to concentrate our efforts on 3, 5, and 7. The residents in number 5, after one meeting, decided not to attend any of the further meetings. So what we had been able to achieve since that time, working with the residents, mainly 5, 7, 9, and 11, was that the developer has agreed to provide plantings on their property and on the property of the condominium corporation to mitigate any sight lines that the townhouses would have onto their property. And if you know the area, you know there already is considerable large trees in that area. But where there may be gaps in trees, the developer is going to work with the individual homeowner and an arborist to ensure that there's planting both on one and the other side of the fence. The developer also agreed choice to the homeowner for those properties. And these were all requests made by the homeowners of those particular properties. And last but not least, they had asked for further setbacks from what was being proposed, so to actually move the buildings back. And it was based on that final request that was made, that the developer basically said to Councillor Hames and I that they would agree to the setbacks if we agreed to supporting the application. So to members of council, we were in a position where we believed that this development would be approved with or without our support. We believed and we also have assurances that these will be executive townhouses. The price that has been cited by the developer is they will be selling at a price of approximately $400,000. That the finishing in the neighborhood, and we will be able to make those assurances through site plan approval, will be such that the quality will be there. I can assure you these will not be slums. This particular development will not fall to criminal activity. These will be an executive type townhouse, and the condominium corporation actually helps to guarantee that this property will be of a higher level of maintenance, because the condominium corporation will be responsible for ensuring. I mean, people can't go in and paint purple and yellow and green. They can't make changes to exterior finishes. The condominium corporation will be responsible for ensuring that they are maintained and that the value is retained. So it has been a long road. The municipality can no longer continue to say no to the development of this property. It's not within our power to do that. And I know the residents in Bramley Woods are disappointed, but this property owner has a right to develop the property, and there are certain rules that are set down by the Province of Ontario in the Planning Act that we have to adhere to. So we have a choice of making that decision as a council and ensuring that we get the best possible finishing and site plan and concessions for our residents, or we allow it to go to the Ontario Municipal Board and they can make whatever decision they want. So I know that was a lot of words, but this particular site has not been simple, to tell you the truth. I would have loved it if it never came back again for Councillor Hames and I to deal with, because we have a complete difference of opinion between the residents that live adjacent to the property and the property owners in every case as to what is suitable for those lands. So if council does approve this, then our staff, through site plan approval, will continue to ensure that the developer uses the highest quality materials, and that the things that they have told us through our discussions, that we will hold their feet to the fire to ensure that happens. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be very brief because I think Councillor Miles said pretty well most of what I would have said anyway. This has been a long time in coming, and it has had, we did, one of the things we had years ago was single family dwellings, but it didn't work. The developer couldn't, I guess it was not financially viable for him, and hence the the lot was sold, which it has been done, as Councillor Miles said, 4 times now. We've met with both the residents that back on to that area 2 or 3 times. I believe we've met with them. We've met with the developers when we've asked them to do something like set them back further, make it so they're not as visible as they could be. They've done that. They've agreed to everything that we asked them to agree to. In my time on council, this is probably the first time that we've had developers agree to so many changes as they have on this one. And it's under those circumstances that we do feel that taking this to the Ontario Municipal Board would not serve the residents, or it wouldn't serve us. We've seen what's happened at the Ontario Municipal Board when we and planning have opposed a project that has still gone through. And so in our minds that it's this is what we've been able to do, not what the residents wanted. However, this land has been there for, well, 40, 50 years before it was started to be built on, and at some point something will happen there. And if we today say no to this, then it will be for sure go to the Ontario Municipal Board, and it doesn't have to have the same things in it that it is today. What Councillor Miles and I worked with the developers to get was the setbacks being further. They also changed the roofs at the end. Instead of them being upright, they've sort of cut it off so you don't see it as much from the other side. They're concessions that don't have to be part of the OMB hearing if it goes to that. So we're convinced that we've made the right decision. We'd much rather have seen the single detached family homes there, but it didn't work the first time that a developer came proposing that. So as under all those circumstances, we believe that this is the right decision for us to make at this time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Sprovieri?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Mayor. Just to get a better understanding, and I know that councillors, I'm sure, did their utmost best to bring the best possible proposal here before us, and just to get an understanding, I heard say that there's 3 stories and 4 stories stock townhouses here on this proposal. Is that correct?
That's correct too, Madam Mayor.
So is that mean that each floor will be a separate unit, or similar to the Daniels on Bramley Road and
The concept is similar to the Daniels.
So there'll be
Individual units.
individual units each
divided.
floor. And what is the square footage of these units, these individual units?
They range in size between almost 1,000 square feet and 1,100 square feet.
So each floor would be about 1,000
Between
square feet?
900 and 1,100 square feet.
So that would mean that the frontages are fairly wide, is it?
Yeah, and again, it's going to be as a condominium development.
So what would the frontages be around?
Do you recall?
You know?
Of 6 meters, 20 feet.
That's 20 feet. So that's what we're getting at the Daniels and Castlemore. And so each unit will be around 400,000? Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
Well, if you can achieve that, I think that you begin an excellent product to get each floor 400,000. It's So is there any way to make sure that does happen?
We can't fix price through planning regulations. However, what we can do is through site plan control, keep the development and architectural standards to a level which will drive value at something approximate to what you're hearing this afternoon.
Yeah, but, in dealing with staff with the Daniels proposal in Castlemore, I was told that the city only has control over site plan over the exterior and not the interior.
That's correct. However, the exterior really drives a lot of the price point in terms of the building material and the attention to architectural detail. If that goes into the outside, the inside is going to be pretty consistent.
Well, I would hope it would be, because if the developer is targeting, trying to sell these off as fast as they can, they're going to try to cut some corners in quality. Maybe they can't cut corners on the outside, but they'll probably try cutting corners on the inside. So I would hope that that the commitment is really strong, and that we can keep them to their word, the city.
Every power that we have under the Planning Act and our own policies for architectural control and urban design to ensure that.
Now, the units that back onto Hazelwood, I understand, I really understand the concerns. Are they 3 stories or 4 stories high?
I believe those ones are the 3-story ones.
And the 4 stories are
And
facing
what the applicant has done with the landowners recently, as Councillor Miles suggested, has worked on the elevations and the landscaping, and can't share a copy with all of council, but I'll indicate a lot of the work that's been done to show the before and after quality of the development. So the landscaping that's going to be installed basically protects the view of the entire development from those people backing on the house at Hazelwood. In addition to that, the increased setbacks that are being proposed today as an amendment to the resolution will further enhance that relationship.
Yeah. So did you try to convince them to go with 2 stories there on
I
those
think
units?
in the overall scheme of things, when you add the setbacks and you deal with the landscaping and the screening that's going into this site, and to get a proposal that drives the economics so that you actually can achieve the quality that you were speaking to, Councillor, that overall the higher unit yields a better development than a 2-story would, and then not have the affordability to put the quality into the building stock.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Palashi?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to speak on behalf of the 2 councillors for the area, because I know this has put them into a very difficult position. But the residents have to realize that times are changing. With the growth plan that's come out now from the province and the intensification that they want to see, if this went to the board, I can guarantee you that they would absolutely get what they want. They would probably get more units, because if you look at that and the amount of green space that they have provided there, which I believe was negotiated by the 2 councillors, and the additional screening, the most impacted are the people that back on to that complex, and I think that the councillors did an admirable job in providing some privacy and answering the concerns of the homes that back onto the project. The rest of the development, what's on Howden, and the quality that's going to be there, from what I've seen as chairman of planning on this plan, is far outweighs probably the majority of plans that I have seen in development proposals. So I think that they have done an excellent job in doing this. And John Corbett is absolutely right. I mean, it's the quality of the outside. They're not going to be able to sell this product if they don't have good quality inside also. I mean, I don't know any project that would spend that amount of money, put that in, and want that price without having quality both inside and out, because they just won't sell it at that. And I think that with us through the site plan approval process that we have here at the city and the architectural control, we do set the guidelines and we can control that here. So as I say, I know it's difficult for the two councillors for the area because you certainly want to support the residents and the issue. This has been going on for a great number of years, as long as I've been on council. This here, I believe there was a commercial site at one time, there were restaurants, there was high-rise, there was everything. And I think, as I say, in what's happening today with the province and the growth plan, I think this is the best you're going to get in the area, and certainly the quality is going to be there, that once it's there and up and operating, I believe that your fears will be satisfied. I don't see this as being a high-crime area, especially when you're calling those costs. The only crime you would have is the expense of B&E artists, because you're building a quality project. So, but generally, though, I think that it's good, and I think that it's a win-lose situation, and it's what you can get the best of. And I think what you've got here is probably the best compromise that you're going to get. And I certainly support this project, because I know if we go to the board, absolutely, we would lose this at the board. And they probably would get more if they wanted to cut down on the size, because the first thing the province would say is, looking at that proposal there, is they would say that you can intensify. You can take that centerpiece out and put in some additional residential there, high-density residential right in the centers, that's not affecting anybody other than the people that drive by and see a higher building sitting there. So I think you've done a pretty good job in what you had to work with. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, just quickly, Madam Mayor, perhaps I can suggest to the councillors that they ask for the same that we got, Councillor Dillon and I, with the Daniels, where it was in a resolution where the councillors were involved in a site plan approval process, which we are involved right now, and consultation with the residents. So we actually brought the plans to the residents to make sure that they were okay with it, and also have the residents comment through the councillors to staff. And that's what we're doing at the Daniels at Castlemore. So perhaps if that may be something that the residents will feel comfortable, at least that they'll have a chance to view the site plan before it's approved. Yeah, we actually, we had it in a motion in our situation. We had it right in the resolution. Okay, thank you.
Council, I have before me the resolution moved by Councillor Hames and Councillor Miles, and it's the staff report be received, and the recommendations are as printed with the following changes. Under 4.2, item E, there was a negotiated minimum interior side yard width to be 32 feet. That has been changed, and it's written in that it be 12.1 meters, which is 40 feet for block 6 and 7, and the interior side yard width for block 8 be no more than 12.1 and no less than 10 meters, which is 33 feet. So that's a handwritten change from what you have. Let me just turn the pages. I don't know if there's anything else here. And the planning commissioner has heard the expectation, not written in the legal document, but we know that Councillor Hames and Councillor Miles are like to be involved in every detail, and I'm sure they'll want to continue to work with these residents and others who've participated. Gone are the days where council has the authority to say no, and when you negotiate for extra landscaping, once you're at the Ontario Municipal Board, you lose all that you've negotiated, and you come back with something, and we've seen it happen more intense than what you started with. So I believe the councillors have worked to find the best, given the current provincial legislation that mandates intensification, and as the planning chair has said, when we go to the board with applications, the applicant usually goes back to their original, which I think was 20% more dense. So it's always marrying the risks the old days of just the notion that council just says no and it goes away. It's not the way the Planning Act is written. It's not the authority of a municipal council. I think as long as people continue to work together, we're going to try to find the best resolution for everybody involved. All those in favor of the report as now presented? Opposed? Thank you, that's carried. Perhaps at some point the councilors, I'm sure people want to know now that it's had its planning up, its council approval, when is this development going to start and be there and have subsequent meetings? And you wouldn't know that today, but okay, council, we now move to G5, and G5 is the presentation or a very extensive report. Peter Van Sickle is here to speak. Is Peter here? Is Peter back? There he is. Thank you, Peter. And just to let you know that we do have some delegations and a letter. Peter, you are the first delegation. Angela Battis, where's Angela? Angela, thank you. And then there's some correspondence. The motion before the chair, or before the mayor, is to receive the delegations, and also the report is moved and seconded by the councillors Moore and Gibson as printed, no changes. So we'll move forward with this today by first inviting Peter to come and speak to us. I mean, we're moving forward with the topic today. So there's some. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, council, members of staff, the audience. I'm Peter Van Sickle. I'm here today as president of the Brampton Downtown Development Corporation, and I'd like to speak to the recommendation report submitted by the planning staff for the development planning system for Main Street North. I'm going to be very brief. Firstly, we'd like to recognize the innovation that this process represents. We see it as recognizing the heritage aspects of the Main Street North area while allowing for the logical densification of the street, and it supports change. We like the fact that the DPS will expedite applications and reduce costs. We do have concerns about the heights that are limited between the gateways, but feel with the appeal mechanism that's in place that this should allow for reconsideration of these limits when an application is presented. We've mentioned in the past that the boundaries for the DPS are possibly too tight and that redefinition of the included area should be made shortly after the bylaws passed. These moves, the DPS moves, are progressive ones. They should be attractive to developers and investors who are looking for certainty in getting their projects to market. We're looking forward to the DPS facilitating growth in this very important part of Brampton. Thank you.
In 4 minutes about all of that. 1 minute and a half. Okay, I mean, oh my Lord. Holy smokes. Okay, then we're going to invite Angela to come down and speak. Thank you for holding the railing. Those stairs are built uneven. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Your Honor. I'm Angela Battiston, and I'm a property owner, and I represent another 10 property owners on Main Street, Thomas, and Market Street. I'm here to ask that the council defer on this project, on this presentation until our people, the other people in our group would be able to see the report. We've never seen anything written on any comments written by the planning department on any of our letters that we have sent in, and we have sent in many letters objecting to this permit system. The reason too that we feel that this is the wrong time to be presenting this. Summertime, people are away. We didn't get much notice that this was going to happen. I didn't get my letter stating regarding this meeting until Friday night, did not pick up this report until Tuesday morning, really have not had time to review it and to study it. And I've talked to some of our other members, and they would like to look at it, read it, and review it. I did speak to Elaine this morning. I spoke to Grant. I spoke to John Corbett. John Corbett sent me a memo. His memo is, I said to him, I said, John, this is how I spoke to him. I said, John, we've met with you many times, but we've never gotten anything in writing from you. And so he gave me something in writing. And it's very interesting because I won't read the whole thing. I'll just read the last sentence. In our assessment, he writes, of your proposal, we will of course be evaluating the scope, intensity, and height of the project to ensure compatibility with the host community. Well, it's interesting that he put that in there because is he's going to use the host community, the new, Main Street North permit system bylaw, which is right now stating only 5 stories maximum, where we are, and not even where I am, where part of our group is, as the, the area where they're going to, go from high to low? Or are we going to use that, are we going to use the host community that he's referring to is Medallion, which is, the same 100 feet from us. The building that's the co-op, which is 160 feet from us. The building on Church Street, the Hallmark, which is, many more stories higher than 5 stories. Are they going to be our host community, or are we getting, only the limit of the 5-story? I don't agree with this, the way they're presenting this Main Street North concept. They're saying that they're going to have a gateway. The gateway is going to be Vaughan and Main, and then it's going to be Church and Main. Well, if that's going to be the gateways, there is very little in between. And what are you asking for the middle there? There's a lot of properties in that area that just are not worthy to be saved, okay? They're just old properties. There is opportunity here for the redevelopment that the downtown needs. You're putting in this beautiful new city hall, okay? There's not a new store in that area. I haven't seen a brand name go in there. The only thing that's gone in is Starbucks. We're not going to attract anybody in there. We're not going to attract the people that we want downtown to shops. We're not going to attract the pedestrians. If you talk to any of the store owners that were there, they'll tell you, unless we get more higher density population down there, there's not going to be anything that can be sustained, okay? There's nothing that, the stores that were there, the little cute stores, the little antique stores, Kiss Me, I'm Irish, I've talked to them. They said until we get some more people in here that are owners, that are proud to be here, we need the density. They had to move, okay? They had to close down. We've had Michael Gagnon, who's here, did a report for us and wrote to the city. And his report is not fully in here, but he put in many good points. And the points were that we need the type of development that we would like to see on our site. I wish that, his full report had been in here. And I wish that everybody had had time to review it, okay? And again, I'm asking for this to be deferred until our group can review it, the bylaw, and that the bylaw and that we can review the comments that Steph made on the bylaw from the planning department. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gibson, did you have questions of the delegation, or you're the first speaker then? Thank you very much. Council, I do have a motion to receive the two delegations, Peter Van Sickle and Angela Bassett, and also correspondence. All those in favor of receipt of the delegations? Thank you, that's carried. I have before me the main motion. It's moved by Councillor Moore and seconded by Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gibson, you're on the screen.
Yeah, just, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to explain so council understands, similar to the last one we just dealt with. The first public meeting that was held on this came in September in 2009, and there was a staff report from planning on that. So before that, this process actually started approximately 7 years ago. It's been a long, drawn out, and Commissioner can tell you sometimes I got very angry that it was being drawn out, but we went, I say we the city, and we the planning department went way out of our way to make sure that everybody in that area, including the residents and the property owners, got an opportunity to have their say. And as you see from the report, there was 2 public meetings and an open house. The residents aren't here today because the residents in that area are very happy. We've got some property owners like Angela who wants us to allow them through this to go a lot higher. And we can't do that, and a lot more denser. But the commissioner has let those people know that this doesn't stop them at all. It doesn't hinder them at all from coming in with another process to get something more dense or more higher or whatever they want. All this does, this whole process, is it allows some of the property owners in this area to have more than what they've got today. And Councillor Moore and I and the planning department, Commissioner can tell you that there are people waiting for this so that they can start some projects. They've came to us and said, we'd like to start a project, but it's cost prohibitive for them in small properties to go through, as the Kissimmee-Irish people have found out, to go through a rezoning just so they can sell their products out of their properties. This allows a lot of different uses. It allows that to happen without having to go through a long, drawn-out, very costly process. And that's all it does. I guess we just can't get through to Angela and a couple of other people that this doesn't hinder them at all. In fact, it does the opposite. It allows them to have uses that they don't have today. And it gives them a starting point to get to where they may want to be in the future. I want to thank the staff. I know the staff have been very patient going through all this, very patient with me, because sometimes I've been a little critical that it's been taking so long. But I know that, as we always do, we want to do our homework in case we end up being appealed, and we want to make sure we do everything right. And the staff have done a tremendous job under the guidance of the commissioner. And the commissioner has come out to many of our meetings and personally sat down with Angela and some of those other residents, or not residents, property owners, to make sure they can understand what this process is all about. But I am not in favor of deferring this off. It's just gone on way too long, and let's get on with it and let some of those other property owners get going. Thank you.
Thank you. I just had a few questions. I just want to make sure this is really giving that, as you use the example of Kissimmee-Irish, which we had concerns about them being there, that they wouldn't be able to survive, and we politically assisted and shortcutted, and, well, they're gone. So the staff weren't wrong. We're giving us good advice. I just have a question. The new legislation allows delegated authority. We would be the first municipality first major city, certainly, to delegate the authority to issue a permit. I just want to be clear, and I'm all for streamlining, but for example, on I-813-3, number 8 says that the development permit bylaw approval authority for development be delegated to a director in the Planning, Design, and Development Department. So who would, it has to be, I guess, said that way because you don't know who the director's going to be, but I guess we'd have to name the point of contact person at some point, and I guess it could change from time to time. My question is, when you normally go through the expensive rezoning process, the report has public input, it comes back to council, and council is always the ultimate decision maker. So when a lot of councillors around here have talked about delegated authority, so this report is intended to delegate authority. I want to make sure everyone has read that. We're delegating authority to a director, not a commissioner, not the city manager director, to approve development. I mean, it can't be. So what am I missing?
Through you, Madam Mayor, what this proposal does is try to take that very cumbersome process that we have right now for Main Street North. We use Kissimmee, I'm Irish, I can use a number of different examples where they have to do an official plan amendment, a zoning bylaw amendment, maybe a minor variance, and site plan approval. And for the small business entrepreneur, that's a very onerous process, hard to understand, hard to navigate, and very expensive. So the province introduced a number of years ago the ability to do a development permit system where you basically consolidate all those processes into one. But there was a very specific condition attached to that. And the condition was that you would have to have very, very specific design guidelines in your official plan, your secondary plan, and a development permit bylaw that's similar to a zoning bylaw that says within that scope of delegated approval, you can only build a certain range of uses, certain height, certain intensity, et cetera, and a certain quality in terms of built form. As long as you stayed within that tight framework, you could go through that development permit system. It's not unlike a building permit system where the Building Code Act sets out Building Code Act restrictions. You stay within that, then the chief building official, which is a director level position in the organization, has the ability to issue a permit. If you stray outside the realms of those tight guidelines, then of course you have recourse through appeals to council and so forward. So, or in the case of a person like the delegation, Angela Battison, if they have a far more intense proposal that would fall out of those strict guidelines, they're free to file a zoning bylaw amendment and take on the larger, more enhanced process. So basically what we're doing is we're taking the most appropriate scale of development, saying if you did exactly what council wants, and again, through a very, very rigorous public review process, so the public's well aware of what are in these guidelines, then you're free to go through that streamlined process and get a permit rather than those complicated bylaw amendments.
So on the map, and thank you for the map on I-1310, we've been very specific about which properties. So am I to understand that the parameters of this report are establishing sort of some limits of development, size, scale, scope, and so on, and saying on these properties, if you're within that framework, you can come and get a building permit. You don't have to, sort of like a rezoning opportunity, if you will, on these specific properties?
That's correct. And if you look at the appendices, all the detailed design guidelines and the policies for the permit system and the permit or similar to zoning restrictions are set out. So it's very ascertainable what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. And if you stay within those parameters, then you can take this streamlined process.
And so will the report from the designated delegated person come to council just without all of those other, that official plan amendment calls for a whole range of studies potentially could be called upon. This would sort of avoid all of that red tape.
But there are, it's not still within, like the site plan control process, as it sits today, the applicant still has to submit studies to prove and justify their development. That still occurs within this process, within the professional judgment staff.
Is there going to be a report written by Director X that comes to council to approve it?
No, there will not be a report to council.
Or is this full delegated authority, sort of like Committee of Adjustment, it's not here? It's considered complying with this prescribed general outline for properties on Main Street North.
Exactly. As long as you stay within the parameters, then it's a staff delegated approval.
In terms of uses, height?
Just like site plan approval is today.
Okay. And is there a fee for that?
There are fees, and there's a tariff of fees bylaw suggested with this report.
Okay, sorry, I missed the fees bylaw. So So somebody would fill out an application, they'd attach the appropriate check. Somebody would review the application. If it fits in the general scope and intent for Main Street North, they can then proceed to building permit?
Yeah, they would get an
Or site
overall
plan.
permit that would allow them to construct on the property and there'd be an agreement attached to it. So again, it's similar to a site plan process, which is delegated to staff.
And when will council, who is designating the delegate, well, we can word, I guess it has to be somebody around the site plan scope that would know that as we do the chief building officials.
Exactly, it's a development
So
approval
if somebody
function.
called Councillor Sanderson, for example, he'd say, I'm gonna forward that email to whoever, and then they're on their way to that kind of
Exactly.
handling. If they have an application, do something that far exceeds, but may be positive and exciting, they're not precluded from doing more.
Exactly,
They just have to do it through the conventional way.
exactly.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Callahan?
I noticed that there's a separation between those lands that are subject to the potentiality of Noah's Ark bestowing a storm on us. So I envisage this, that if somebody takes out a permit, or proceeds by a permit, and the piece of property includes both flood area, I'm sorry, it couldn't include the flood area, that would have to be excluded, and the land that isn't flood area, how do you deal with that?
Mayor, actually, there is a distinction within the overall official plan. There's a delineation of a development permit area. For the purposes of actually giving a permit, the area is smaller, recognizing that there's areas at the southerly end of the development permit area that are within the regulatory floodplain and can't yet be subject to these provisions until we resolve that issue with the TRCA over the coming months.
This wasn't perhaps an opportunity to try to get the province to, and the conservation authorities to be a little more reasonable in terms of...
Well, it is helping us in those
Is it?
negotiations.
Okay.
Yes.
The other one was, I noticed at the end of it, that the councilors of the area were asking about bed and breakfasts, and I think that that's perfect opportunities along there. That's the kind of thing you have in entrances to towns. It's an invitation to stay in a home environment as opposed to having to go to a hotel. Is there any difficulty with that, or
No,
does
there's
it
no
require a lot
difficulty.
more? Sorry, I missed that. It's I-8-1311?
It's recommendation number 11, printed on I-8-13-3.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, that's fine, that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Well, a lot has been said, but this is really a good news report for all of those folks who own property along Main Street North. It changes the list of what they can do as of right from a very small list today to something far more generous. It just raises the bar of where everybody starts from. I want to compliment staff who worked on this report. It is amazingly comprehensive. It was a lot of work. We waited a long time for it. I'm going to say it was worth waiting for, but it really is containing the level of detail that gives us as area councilors the confidence that we need, that when staff do meet with somebody who wants to develop their property within the guidelines and the criteria set out in the report, that the right decision is going to be made. Something we haven't talked about, this is just the first step of introducing the DPS system in Brampton. That the next geography that this is going to cover is Queen Street West. And the Queen Street West community, much like Main Street North, kind of took on its own personality. It converted from residential to a quasi-office commercial area, and Queen Street West is doing the same thing. The Queen Street West property owners are waiting for this same thing, for the DPS to be extended to that part of Brampton, because right now, when they convert to, whether it's a motorcycle shop or a hairdresser or landscaping, it's a very expensive and time-consuming process for them. This will simplify their life because it changes what they're allowed to do to a far more generous list. So we've waited a long time. I am absolutely convinced this is the right way to go for all of those property owners, and it's in the best interest of expanding to the kinds of uses that we want to see along these two corridors in the city. So I stand behind staff's report here. I think that, it's very clear that if you want to do something outside of what is prescribed in this document, you use the traditional planning process. All of the rights and privileges under the Planning Act are still available to all of these property owners. And they'll be evaluated and contextualized like every other application. Thank you. All those in favor of the recommendation as moved by Councillor Moore and Councillor Gibson, and I would ask if you wouldn't mind, because from time to time we're asked to have a summary of all the delegated authority. So I think that was prepared a little while ago. Could we send this to it so there's always a handy list of all the delegated authorities? So this is a council-directed delegated authority. Could you add that? All those in favor? Thank you. I think there's been only one or two, but we must have some big book of delegated authority, as if there had been so much, but there hadn't been. So why don't we track them as they're done, one here and one there. Makes it easy. Council, the next item on the agenda, I-4-1, is moved by Councillor Dillon, seconded by Councillor Hutton, and this is our insurance of being able to host the 2013 Junior Women's World Softball Championships. It is moved as printed. Questions or comments? Councillor Pleshy, are you still on the board from the last one, or are you first speaker? Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I want to know where the money's coming from. Because it says here in the recommendation that the capital budget be amended to include a new capital project in the amount of $402,000 for sports field improvements with funding provided from Reserve Number 4 Asset Repair and Replacement. What is the amount that we have in Reserve Number 4 for asset repair and replacement? Anybody know what the dollar amount is?
I'm looking at the Commissioner of Finance. I'm hoping he's got that.
Through you, Madam
In
Mayor,
your
I can
memory.
find it in a minute. I don't have it
Okay,
readily
well,
available.
while you're looking at that then, I would like to, first of all, I'm gonna tell you, it's great that we're getting this. I think that's absolutely fantastic that we bring in this type of venue, because it's another way to put Brampton on the world map. Great to see how many, you got 24 international teams coming, so that's quite an event. I can tell you it's gonna be better, I feel, it's absolutely gonna be better than baseball at the Pan Am Games. I don't know if I ever told you I was in PEI for the Pan Am Games, and I went by their baseball stadium for the Pan Am Games, and I couldn't see anybody in the stands. So maybe the first 5 or 6 rows there was people, but once you got above the fence, all the stands were empty. I went down and saw the bike racing. Myself, my wife, and my daughter and son-in-law were the only 4 people on the street for a long block, clapping for people. You know, we went down for a donair to this great place, and we went out and saw the bikes going by, so we went out and we clapped. The riders were actually saying thank you as they rode past us. It was that bad. So this type of a thing is absolutely fantastic for the city when you have a captured group that's coming in for a tournament. So it's great to have that. While you're looking up, the only thing I'm concerned about is the extension of the fences. How does that affect the residents, especially in the old fairgrounds? I think you got in here. Yeah, you're going to extend, in the old fairgrounds park, extend the outfield on the primary event, West Diamond, to 220 feet. Does that, and I can't picture the West Diamond. Does the West Diamond empty onto the street, or does that diamond, the back of it is onto the residential? I believe the back's on the residential and the side of the diamond, or the main diamond behind is the street, the home plate. Correct.
Through you, Madam Chair. The two softball diamonds both face north and east.
Okay,
They're the northerly diamonds.
right.
The easterly one probably has more interface with residents. The west one has a little more interface with the street, or with the, sort of a cut in the park there as the railroad cuts across.
So you don't think that extending that primary event, like you're saying to 220 feet, what is the field at now?
200.
So it's additional 20 feet.
Yep. And the distance from the existing outfield fence to the nearest house is about
Yes.
125, 130 feet.
So you're still over, in excess of 100 feet?
Yeah. Depending on which property, the property that fronts on Ellis is actually a side lot. So it's, the property to the north of the ball diamond on the east is actually a side yard. So we're closer to the side yard than we are to the house, essentially what it boils down to. So in terms of distance to the house, we'll be still within 100 feet. We'll still be about 100 feet in terms of distance between the outfield fence and the nearest house.
Okay, and what about South Fletcher's Park?
Not an issue with surrounding residents. The diamonds face over onto the rec center.
Okay, so there's no issue there, it's just the one, on the old field. Okay, and do you have the answer on the funds?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it is $4.7 million in that reserve account.
4.7 million? Okay, so of that 4.7 in that account, do we have any of that already earmarked for projects?
Through you, Madam Mayor, currently no, but what happens is that's something that we factor in on an annual basis at the time we go through our budget. So next year in the 2013 budget, we'd be looking at the balance of that account and prioritize what projects would be spent out of that.
So what you're saying is this year, that $4.7 million is sitting there with no projects that we were taking under the reserve? Because I now look at, it kind of goes to the infrastructure one that we are at, where we're saying there's considerable amount of dollars that we're applying for under the infrastructure, and we are applying so much of that money ourselves, and that in order to do that projects, for example, Loafers Lake, I think, is number 1 on the list. It's been a long time coming, and I think the city's portion of that is a couple $1 million. Would that not be coming out of the reserves, out of this account? Yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor, with respect to this, our asset replacement reserve, okay, we've identified in numerous reports, including the one today, how we're deficient in that. So what happens is each year we pull together sufficient funding through our tax levy and the balance in that reserve account to then be able to fund whatever capital improvements in that particular year. What we're suggesting in this report, as well as the report regarding the new federal funding, is that we look at our projects in terms of the list of projects that we've identified, in addition to the ones that we've had identified for a number of years, and saying, okay, these are ones we think we should do, but making sure council recognizes that there's other projects that won't happen because these ones are deemed priority because of funding that's available from the federal government.
Okay, so in other words, some of these would have come out of this account once we do the priority listing. The last question I have is, what's the amount that we think will come into the city? Now, I know, and I'm not talking about, you got 34 teams international, they're gonna be spending a lot of money in the city for private business. What is coming to the actual city? Is there any funds that would be coming to us for this tournament?
Through you, Madam Mayor, our research showed $1.8 million to the city economic development. Directly to the corporation, it would be rental of the diamonds and rental of the curling club. I don't have that exact number here for the duration of the event. As well, the group has applied for a number of grants. So Trillium grant of $75,000, and a Ontario's grant, Sport Ontario grant of $200,000. So that will go to offset the cost of the event itself.
Will it go to the offset of the cost of what our project costs, or it goes off to offset the cost to them of what their costs are?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it will go to offset the operating costs, not the capital costs, so that would be the rentals and.
Okay, so, and you're saying that the 1.8 million that Dennis' department said is what's coming into the city not to the city itself, but into the city as a whole, is what the money that event would bring to the city, correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct.
So we don't have you don't have a price on what we're gonna get yet? You don't have an idea of what revenue's coming to the city of Brampton
Not the exact dollar at this
Corporation?
point.
Can you guess? Is there a guesstimate?
I can work it out for you.
Okay, because I'm not gonna hold you to it, but I would hope that if we're gonna spend $402,000 for this tournament, and that, I would hope that we're gonna get something coming into the city of Brampton, not just to the businesses.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it won't just be the tournament revenue that we get. It'll be the long-term legacy and the generation that we get in terms of future tournaments and events that we can host there as well. So to say that it would be limited just to that one-week event would probably be wrong.
Good, so in 2 or 3 years' time, you won't be coming back to us and saying, we got another tournament coming and we need to replace all the fencing with new fencing, right? You're gonna do it right the first time and,
There's no.
it'll be so you're not putting up snow fencing, you're actually putting up fencing, okay.
I think the fencing is there in place, but for international meets, it
It's
has
gotta
to
be
be
moved.
moved out a few feet.
Well, I'm sure we're probably replacing some of it.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty old fencing.
If I may, through Madam Mayor, one of the other reasons, or one of the benefits we saw, is that keeping that park active in that neighborhood is really important to keep it vital and the neighborhood involved and those kind of things, because it's an emerging type of neighborhood where activity really does benefit in that from a resident standpoint as well.
So you're gonna go back to Pan Am and say, guess what, we got 4 great fields for your softball tournament.
We told them that.
Yeah,
We
right,
rejected them all.
okay, thank you.
They wanted 16 in one place. Good luck. Sorry, Councillor Moore, then Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you. I want to echo Councillor Pleshy's comments in terms of the positive aspect of having a tournament like this in the city of Brampton. I think one thing that Brampton is well renowned for is the commitment that we make to sports and holding sporting events. And I think that's a really good thing. The one thing that, nobody likes surprises. And when we have a budget amendment before us for a $402,000 budget amendment, that was a surprise that I don't think any of us had anticipated. So my question are going to be more around when we put in and entered the bid process. Why had we not anticipated that we would need this money for the memorial ball diamonds? Because I understand, like, if you're going to be the host community, I'm assuming that there was ample time for any of these capital improvements to have been included in the 2012 budget submission.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the ISF, International Softball Federation, used to run the tournament every 4 years. They made that change recently to run it every 2 years in order to help grow the sport internationally. And in doing that, we had a very short turnaround time in order to put the bid in. When we put the bid in, it was after the budget process, when we even had the opportunity to put the bid in. So we had to scope out the cost of the project altogether. All of it was done well after the budget process.
Generally before, that being the case, would it not have been wise to have given council a heads up that you were in the bid process? And maybe you did, I just don't recall any report. That if there was the likelihood or the potential for a nearly $500,000 budget amendment, I think that having known that back at the bid process would have been more helpful for us.
Through the chair, I think when this is not the first time they've hosted this event, and I don't really think that there was a lot of changes made. And I think the technical specifications for the actual fields has changed since the last time they hosted it. So I think all people that were involved in putting the bid together were a little bit, not, I wouldn't say surprised, but certainly the way the organizers have modified their standards for tournament play is something that's relatively.
Would that have not have been laid out in the bid documents? So that we knew what criteria was expected to have been met? And whether or not we had baseball diamonds that met that criteria?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it was laid out in the bid. However, the details of what it would cost us to make the changes. Having said that, I mean, it was end of December when we even got the information. It was beginning of January, so over the Christmas period, where we had to have it was the deadline to get any, even an offer on the table. So the timelines were incredibly tight. And at that point, we had no idea what the cost would be to do any of the renovations.
I think, Councillor,
Well, I
if I
still
could
think a
interject
heads up
too,
to
maybe
council
it's
would have been-
helpful. We have tremendous facilities in Brampton, so when there's an opportunity to grab something and get into it, we do. And I think the thought was you don't have to spend a lot of money up at the big ball diamonds at Countryside Drive, but once it was sort of awarded, so from the staff side, you had the facilities, you go for it. Then the Brampton girls softball said, my goodness, our home is here. Please, we were so proud to host this at our home, make the investment here. And that sort of happened after the fact. So if we want to add the investment in perpetuity to have these fine diamonds at the existing home of Brampton's Girls Softball Association, I know they're here today, and then that requires this additional investment. And those facts wouldn't have been known when staff first went in for it, because you're just trying to get it to Brampton. We had a opportunity today to get into an NHL thing. So it's chicken and egg, and I think that's
and I
why the
understand
budget
that.
allows for an amendment. Sometimes that's the way they happen.
The last time that we refurbished these diamonds was in 2000, and I understand, and I respect the fact that there's a lot of new faces around the table since 2000, but there are some of us who recall that when the diamonds were upgraded, I believe they called it Olympic standard back in 2000, the staff of the city at the time involved the neighborhood. And there was a lot of pushback because it is a tight site in terms of a parking strategy. And, I know you've made arrangements down at Sheridan College, and that's good. That's all part of the planning for it. But that neighborhood was not happy about the increasing the standard of the diamonds at that time. And a lot of them are only going to hear about this clock is ticking to get this job done for next year when they read it in The Guardian, or if they happen to be watching it at home. And I know that the neighbors around there are not going to be happy. They're going to be very concerned about this. It is in a residential community, and in 2000, my best recollection was that even the police were involved on more than one occasion because of the noise, the rowdiness, and the disruption to a residential community. And somebody mentioned that it's a community in change. It very much is. There's a lot of young families there. You just have to see the playground at Memorial Arena to know that there are a lot of young families in that neighborhood now. The couple that live right adjacent to on Elliott, next to where, well, I always call it the Junior Farmers Building. Once it was gone, I guess they lost their sound attenuation from all the sports activities that took place there. And they are, quite vocal. You've probably had conversations with them. But when they hear that we're going to expanding the diamonds and that there's going to be a tournament there, and you talk about these diamonds being expanded as a legacy, they are forever going to be a larger, and we talk about other tournaments. That's good for the city of Brampton. But if you live in that neighborhood, you might not think it is so good. So I do question the compatibility. I understand the attraction of that location to this particular league. But in terms of the legacy piece and continuing to hold large tournaments in a very tight residential community at that location, outdoor events that are noisy, go late into the evening, attract large crowds of people, all which is really good for us, but at the same time not good for the folks who live there. So I guess I'm asking the question of how are you going to communicate this to the people who live there? How are you going to make them feel like the concerns that they have are going to be heard and addressed? Are you going to hold a public consultation? Are you going, you've got a year, I understand that, and they're not going to be understanding you're going to be going into a potential meeting with residents who are not going to be happy about this. You're going to have to pull some rabbits out of a hat to make them feel that this is the right decision for their neighborhood.
To the Chair, I think we will be talking with the neighbors, and I think it's good advice. And also, I think part of the whole operation side of the tournament, we'll have an operational type of plan in order to make sure that we mitigate any of their concerns based on their comments. I think that because of the level of play that we can certainly, and the new access we have to the curling club and those type of things, we can really mitigate some of the sort of, I guess, presumed rowdiness and those kinds of things in order to help the neighbors. But I think the life that not only tournaments but regular play brings to that neighborhood is actually quite good. And I have spoken to at least one of the neighbors that lives across the street from that, and they do enjoy the activity and the vitalness of that. So we'll certainly take your advice and talk to the neighbors.
Well, I'm not the area councillor, but if you can find some staff that were around back in 2000 and had to deal with the neighbors that were not happy at the time, it might be really helpful to get that little piece of history so that history doesn't repeat itself for these folks. Thank you.
Sanderson.
Thank you very much, and I was surprised too when I seen this come up in this agenda here, because I did put up with all the neighbors when I was out canvassing last time. I'm sure Councillor Callahan had the same problem over there. It's not the late at night as much as it is early in the morning when they start over there at 7 o'clock in the morning. So you can just imagine. When you say you're extending the fence 20 feet, or the fences, you're moving them back a bit. What about the hedges that are there? Are they going to be removed, or are they going to be distorted, or are we going to be able to keep at least that in there to mitigate some of the noise?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is a fairly good buffer there, and there will be some trees have to be moved on the East Diamond. There's spruces, they can be moved back fairly successfully. There are a number of hedges there that will not be impacted by the change in extending the field slightly.
Okay. I was there along with Councillor Hames at the last major tournament that was there, and it was actually quite the tournament, and it was nice to see that amount of people from all around the country at that corner of our city there. So I much enjoy that type of thing over there. It's just that we do have to let the neighbors know. Unfortunately, they're going to read about it in the newspaper now, and they're going to hear it secondhand rather than us getting to them first. And so again, I would really appreciate it, especially when it's in the area that I represent, and something this major comes up, that we be notified of it ahead of time, not after the fact. And I look forward to working with you on this, and I also look forward to working with staff when we go to meet the neighbors, however we're going to do that.
Councillor Callahan.
Madam Mayor, I concur in what Elaine has said, and also John. And I'm not sure, I'm having trouble with my ears because they're all plugged up, but did someone make the suggestion that we Google around the location, the perimeter, and find out who was living there at the time when this first situation took place? Sorry?
Who would the staff were
Well,
first time it came through, if there was any of them still here.
yeah, well, I think you could also find out by just going up and down those streets on a Google and getting a history of who lived there. Now, that's number one. Number two is you could put them in after dark. I wouldn't suggest that. But the third one is, I think you have to, in order to keep all of us from getting the neighborhoods upset, particularly because there's going to be changes, although they're not that much of a change, but changes, that we should be as transparent as we can because if we're not, after the fact, when we start to try to put them in, we're gonna get hell to pay. And as John said, in an election year, which sounds like this might be, we're talking about then or maybe a little earlier, that would create a real problem. I remember one of the events that was of concern was not so much the fences being expanded, but it was lights. They put lights in there at that time, and we didn't necessarily make them aware of it, and that raised a real kerfuffle. But maybe the route to go is to take the transparent route, send around a circular for some sort of a meeting that what's coming forward, and let them know in advance so that we can take whatever remedial steps we have to take to ensure that we can put it in without a great battle with the constituents.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hames?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wanted to look at on page I-422 regarding,
We're on I-41 right now, and I-42 is the infrastructure money, Councillor?
yeah. Are we not at that yet?
No, we're still doing the women's softball, moving the outfield fence. So
Okay.
the same number of ball players hitting the
Okay.
same number of balls, the regulation is move the fence. That's all.
That's all. Well, I'll come back, but I do want to speak about
Okay.
about the baseball stadium there too. I think it's a great thing for the city of Brampton, you know, and I live across from a 100-acre park that is packed all summer long, and it's fabulous to see. It's great to see so many young people being involved, whether it's soccer or basketball or volleyball that they're doing now. It's great. Is it a nuisance to the neighbours? At times it can be rowdy, but I'd much rather hear that rowdiness than having kids who hang out in the park.